My son stole his dead mother's ring for his girlfriend, and now he won't talk to me after I forced him to return the ring. I was furious. I'm 46 and have a son, Ryan, who's 23. He was a good kid growing up, so what he did came as a complete surprise to me. I also have a daughter, Emily, who is 16. When my wife died during the pandemic, she already had a will drawn up. She was immunocompromised due to a condition diagnosed 10 years before her death. This means that the wife had an increased risk of infection due to a defect in her immune system, so she made sure to make a will in advance in case something happened to her. In this will, she divided the inheritance between the children, and Ryan immediately received his share since he was already an adult at that time. He used the money to make a down payment on an apartment. He also received his mother's car, but the will stated that all her jewelry would go to her daughter. The jewelry included a vintage gold ring with a diamond and light blue sapphires on the sides. This ring has been passed down from generation to generation in my wife's family. It originally belonged to her grandmother. Her husband was a jeweler and made the ring by hand. After my grandmother died, the ring went to my wife's mother, and then to my wife herself. After the death of her mother, it, like other jewelry, was supposed to go to her daughter. After the death of my wife, I took the loss hard, but I held on for the sake of my children, and they fully supported me. So, betrayal by my son was like a rusty knife in my back. Ryan has been dating Madison for the past 8 months. She twirls it the way she wants and loves jewelry, wearing a lot of it all the time. One day, Ryan told Madison about the family jewelry that his sister had inherited from his mother, and Madison really wanted to see it. So he came into my room when no one was there and showed them to her. Later, he admitted this to me. I got angry and thought that this would be the end of it. I was wrong. A week ago, Ryan came to me and begged me to give the same ring from the family jewelry to his mother so that he could propose to him. He said Madison fell in love with the ring when she saw it, and he was just convinced it was the perfect ring to propose to Madison. My son was absolutely sure that I would jump for joy that he was going to get married. But I told him that it was not for me. The ring belonged to Emily, but I won't let him pressure her into giving it away. I gave him a fair chance to explain his reasons and ask Emily for the ring once, but only once, without pressure. And if she refuses for any reason, then the matter is closed. Ryan agreed and asked Emily for the ring right in front of me, but she refused because she wanted to keep the ring in the family. Besides, she always adored him. It is priceless to her. She couldn't bear the thought of giving it away. I told Ryan that was it and not to bring it up again. Ryan left upset about the rejection, but I thought he would accept it and start looking for a similar ring. A few days later, he came again while I was at work to talk to my sister again. She and Emily had a huge fight over the ring, and Emily called me crying. I called Ryan and told him to leave my house immediately and leave my sister alone. Ryan yelled at me that he should have as much right to the ring as his sister because my wife is also his mother. But I reminded him that he had already received most of the inheritance. His mother's money and car, and the jewelry belonged only to Emily. He hung up, and soon Emily wrote to me that he left very angry. Later, right before I left work, my daughter called me and said Ryan was coming over again. He came into my room, took something, and left without saying a word. When Emily tried to stop him, he pushed her away. I rushed home immediately after my shift and checked my wife's jewelry box. There was no ring. I called Ryan immediately, but he didn't answer. So I sent him a message that I would call the police if he didn't return the ring. And even if he had already proposed, that wouldn't stop me from taking it back. This finally made him talk, and he started wailing that I can't do this because he is my son. I said, I can and will do it. He blatantly stole the ring, and he better return it immediately, otherwise I will take strict action. He called back immediately after that and said that it was too late. He took his girlfriend to a restaurant and proposed to her with that ring. He had it for no more than an hour, but the ring was already on her finger. I replied that it was his problem. He stole the ring and should return it. It doesn't belong to him. I will do everything to get him back. And if this means turning to the police and stirring up a scandal, so be it. I will file an application, even hire a lawyer. Ryan started crying and saying I couldn't do this to him. I said, You're out of luck. You stole from your sister and your dead mother. I won't back down until the ring is returned. He continued to cry and make excuses, and then I said that the ring must be returned by morning, otherwise I will begin legal action. Ryan is my son, but he broke the law and I can't turn a blind eye to that. He said that he would come in the morning to talk, and hung up, sobbing even harder. In the morning, Ryan actually came and brought his girlfriend with him. They tried to press for pity. It turned out that she knew that the ring was stolen, but she still wanted to keep it because she fell in love with him at first sight. I said I don't care. Let her order a copy from a jeweler or something like that, but she doesn't own the original. It belongs to my daughter and my late wife. Ryan once again begged me not to force her to give up the ring, but my daughter and I stood our ground. Return the ring, or we would go to the police, and perhaps there would be a lawsuit. Ryan's girlfriend took the ring off her finger, threw it into my daughter's hands, called me an evil bastard, and ran out of the house crying. Ryan started yelling at me that I might have ruined his relationship. I replied that it was he who ruined his relationship by stealing a ring that did not belong to him. What kind of son steals from his sister and his dead mother is beyond the pale. Ryan had nothing more to say to me and followed his girlfriend out. I didn't bring anyone into this situation, but Ryan did. He tried to enlist the support of friends and relatives, but received a completely opposite reaction. Everyone was angry at him because of what he did. Many people called and wrote to me expressing support in this conflict. I tried to somehow mitigate the consequences, but now everyone knows about this story with the ring. A week has passed and Ryan refuses to talk to me. I sent him detailed photos of the ring in case he wanted to order a copy from a jeweler. But making a copy will be very expensive unless you use fake stones. So far, he hasn't responded. I don't know what's going on with his girlfriend now, whether they are still together after all this. But I still believe that Ryan should have returned the ring. Since then, I have placed all of my wife's jewelry in a safe deposit box that only I have access to. The jewelry will stay there until my daughter turns 21, maybe longer if she wants to keep it safe. So I'm sure I was right to return the ring, although I don't want my son to hate me, and I don't want my family to hate him. If anyone has any tips on how to handle this situation without giving away the ring or spending a ton of money on a copy, I'm willing to listen. So, before we move on to the update, I suggest you write in the comments right now so that you can advise the author on how to deal with this situation. Well, now we move on to the update. Update 1. Well, Madison has officially broken up with Ryan. He is heartbroken and blames me for it. Some have previously written that I overestimated my son, calling him a good guy. Once upon a time he really was like that, but I simply don't recognize the person he has turned into now. Whether he was always like this or just fell under the influence of the wrong woman who spoiled him is a mystery to me. But this does not justify his action. After I forced him and Madison to return the stolen ring, she said she lay in bed crying for several days and then told Ryan she didn't want another ring. It was my late wife's ring that she wanted, and she couldn't imagine getting engaged to anyone else now that it had already been on her finger, even if only for a few hours. Many people have told me that Madison acts like a spoiled child. None of this was a secret because Ryan himself had dished it all out, seeking support from family and friends, both his own and Madison's, which ended very badly for both of them. After Ryan's failed attempt to gain sympathy, the local drama buffs pounced on the situation like sharks on prey and kept sending me messages with new information, even though I didn't ask them to. So I stayed in the loop, even though Ryan and Madison weren't communicating with me. Ryan still had the photos of the ring that I sent him, so he could try to make a copy. He took them to the jeweler. The jeweler said he could make a similar ring from photographs, but he would need to examine the original and take precise measurements to evaluate the stones and metal and understand what would be needed to make the most accurate replica possible. Ryan hesitated for a moment, and then, swallowing his pride, he called me again. His girlfriend was finally at least open to the idea of a copy, but she wanted it to be accurate down to the last detail. A couple of days after my first post, they called and asked me to bring the ring to the jeweler to find out the exact price of the duplicate. I agreed to take an extended lunch break and meet them at a local jewelry store. I took the ring from the safe deposit box and watched it very carefully. I saw Madison's eyes light up with greed when she saw him again. She held out her hand and asked to put it on for just a minute, and then she pouted like a child when I said, "No." She could just run away with it as soon as she got her hands on it. The jeweler carefully examined the ring and said that it was worth much more than we thought, and it would be expensive to make a copy. The ring was old and intricately crafted by my wife's grandfather around the 1940s. The jeweler admired the ring, and the diamonds and sapphires were quite large for an engagement ring, and the base itself was not thin, but thick and heavy, presumably made of 18-karat gold. But that's not all. The stones were set in platinum, and there were delicate floral engravings around the ring. The set of stones alone for such a replica would cost more than Ryan currently has. The work of the jeweler himself would also be very expensive, because each element would have to be made by hand. The total amount was 5 times what Ryan had saved. At best, he could make an advance and then spend years paying off the debt. Madison wanted Ryan to order the ring anyway, but the cost was too high. Then the jeweler suggested making a ring that would be simply similar. After all, it is not necessary to use the same materials. It was possible to take a central stone that looked like a diamond and replace the platinum with a similar metal. I don't remember the name. This would greatly reduce the cost. There was also a proposal to find a ready-made modern ring with a similar design, and this would also be much cheaper. In fact, the jeweler already had 3 similar rings with a central diamond and sapphire in stock, all of which were quite reasonably priced. Ryan wasn't against any of these options when Madison suddenly hit him and called him a broke loser. And then she turned to me and called me an evil bastard again for taking her original ring, because it was supposedly already given to her by Ryan when he proposed, and for that reason she should have kept it. Then she raised her hand, as one does when waiting for a ring to be put on their finger, and openly demanded the return of the ring, saying that she had the right to wear it, and my daughter did not need it because with her it would simply be lost. She even said, "Anyway, your daughter will not propose to anyone. After all, a man can buy another ring for her in the future." Oh, how this pissed me off. And she noticed it because she took a couple of steps back. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her that my wife's family ring would never be hers. It didn't belong to Ryan, and he knew it. That's why he stole it while I wasn't home, in the hopes that I wouldn't demand it back if he already proposed with it. But neither he nor Madison ever had any right to this ring. Then I added that it is people like her who are the cause of all the troubles in the modern world. She believes that everything she wants should simply be given to her. She had been itching to have my wife's ring from the moment Ryan first showed it to her. I couldn't hold back any longer. My wife always said that if I decide to insult someone, I will definitely hit the target. When I expressed all this to Madison's face, she raised her hand to hit me too, but apparently the expression on my face stopped her, and she turned around and ran out, loudly emitting some inarticulate screams that made my ears hurt. On the way, she even deliberately knocked over a display case with goods. Ryan looked at me furious, but didn't say anything until I asked him why he was even dating this terrible woman. He simply replied that he loved her and followed her. We must give him credit. She really is very beautiful. But this is only appearance. Madison didn't talk to Ryan for a few days and then said it was over between them because she felt like he didn't value her for not getting her the ring she deserved. She also said that she couldn't imagine me, a miser, being her father-in-law. She felt deeply humiliated by me and cried because everyone now considers her a gold digger. I think that everything is not so far from the truth. Seriously. She hit my son simply for suggesting a more affordable replica of an expensive ring he couldn't afford. And then she threw a huge tantrum when I didn't give her the original upon request. This is the behavior of a gold digger. This is just my guess, but I doubt Madison would have ended up with my son if someone richer hadn't been on the horizon. It looked like she only needed one thing, a ring, nothing more. Right after the breakup, Ryan tried to get into my house again while I was gone. Why, I have no idea. But come to think of it, maybe he was after the money in the safe, or thought the family jewelry was still at home. I had not yet told him that I had transferred them to a safe deposit box, and I really did not want to believe that my own son was capable of hacking for one of these reasons. But he already robbed us once, so he could do it again. Someone here advised me to change the locks in the house, so I did so. Ryan's key no longer fits. Now I'm still thinking about installing surveillance cameras. Emily's daughter called me when Ryan showed up. She was scared. He banged on the door and demanded to be let in. I called him, but he didn't answer. This must have scared him off because, according to Emily, he left immediately after his phone rang. He had a special ringtone set for my number, so he knew for sure it was me. Ryan called back later that evening, but I didn't let him start yelling. I immediately demanded to know why the hell he was trying to break into the house while I wasn't home. He scared his sister. She almost called the police. Ryan dodged the question and started getting angry that I changed the locks because I didn't trust him anymore. I said, "Damn it, of course I don't. After what you did?" He started shouting that I should just be happy for him, and if his mom was alive, she would want him to propose with this ring. I got furious and said that if she really wanted this, she would bequeath this ring to him. Then he started whining that everything was my fault. He recounted exactly what Madison told him when they broke up, how she called me a curmudgeon and so on. Then he started complaining that I always thought Madison wasn't good enough for him. I objected that he was attributing to me words that I had never said. I barely knew Madison and never interfered with their relationship, at least until he stole the ring. He tried to argue, so I asked him, when did I ever say anything bad about Madison before this whole ring thing? You could hear the gears in his brain turning, but he couldn't remember anything. The thing is that I hardly saw her during all their time together. I actually found out that they were dating only 3 months after the start of their relationship. But all this was no longer important. I asked again, why were you trying to get into the house this time? He refused to answer, and then I myself gave him options. If he wanted to pick up the ring or other family jewelry, they were already in a safe place. Only I had access. If he tried to get to the safe with a reserve of money for a rainy day, he still won't open it. And if he came to harm his sister, I'll punch him in the face myself. I think I hit the nail on the head with at least something, because Ryan went silent for a long time. Then he said that he decided to get another job and sell his apartment. He wants to go as far as possible and never speak to me again. His last words were, "Have a good life with your beloved daughter." I don't understand how my son has changed so dramatically in just a year. I didn't call Madison a manipulative gold digger before, just that she had Ryan wrapped around her little finger and that she loved jewelry. Although in essence there is no difference. But the truth is that she is a manipulative gold digger, especially after the theatrics she made trying to keep the ring that never belonged to her. She cried for days over the ring she knew was stolen. Then she threw a huge tantrum when she couldn't return it, or at least make a copy. And now, because of her, my son has decided to cut both me and his sister out of his life. I'm in pain, but at the same time, I am furious that my son decided to do this just to please this witch, whom he dated for only 8 months. This is not enough to make an offer. I dated my wife for over 2 years before proposing to her, and I'm scared to imagine what would have happened if that woman had really married my son. I know Ryan will blame me for a long time, and I don't know if we'll ever talk again. I hope that one day we can make peace, but for now we need to be apart. Emily is also very worried. She is very grateful that I returned the ring, but just as shocked as I am by what Ryan has become. She calls him a brute for the way he pushed her away when he stole the ring. Fortunately, she has strong support, both from me and from the rest of the family. But Ryan definitely doesn't have that now. Many family members called or wrote to him to express their outrage. Even his ex-best friend came to me and apologized. He and Ryan had a big fight over this whole thing. And when this friend, with whom he had been inseparable since elementary school, did not take his side, Ryan cut him out of his life too. Ryan's ex-girlfriend Madison also got into trouble with her family. Her parents contacted me to hear my side of the story and then apologized for their daughter's behavior. They only knew part of the story, but they were horrified to hear how she behaved. They knew her as a kind girl, but they said that over the past few years she had changed a lot, and now they were very disappointed in her. Previously, they paid half of the rent for her apartment, but now they said that after the end of the current lease term, they would not renew it. She should either pay the full amount herself or look for other housing. And now she blames and curses me. What's wrong with people nowadays? When I was Ryan's age, such insolent people were rare, but now they are everywhere. They spread their toxicity around the world like a flood. I can only hope that one day my son will come to his senses and find happiness again, whether or not he ever wants to talk to me again. I will still hope that he will one day become the kind person he used to be. Update 2. I'll start by asking people to stop asking me to send pictures of the ring. Many wrote asking to see it for various reasons. Some even want to order something similar for themselves. I told my daughter about my posts and she is proud of me, but she doesn't want pictures of the ring posted online. It's her decision because the ring belongs to her. I don't need to ask why, I just have to respect her choice. I myself don't like the idea of publishing photos because if strangers start copying the ring, it will cease to be unique. I was willing to have my son make a copy since it's a family affair, but I won't post it for everyone to see. I long ago deleted the pictures of the ring I sent to Ryan. Now it is stored in a safe deposit box. It won't stay there forever. When finances allow, I want to buy a good home safe. Within a few weeks of my first post, I installed cameras in my home, and am now glad I did. For those wondering if my son and Madison got back together, no, they are not. My son is really selling his apartment and has not spoken to me since our last telephone conversation, when he wished me a good life with my beloved daughter since he did not get what he wanted. I went to my lawyer and changed my will. I haven't completely disinherited my son, but so far he's lost a lot of what he might otherwise have gotten. I thought it over and realized that I could no longer feel sorry for Ryan after his recent actions. My daughter Emily called him simp, and when I learned the meaning of this word, I realized that it suited him very well. But I don't want to be angry or sad anymore. None of these feelings are helpful. Now I'll just try to let it go and move on. Ryan, it seems, has decided to live without us. Perhaps over time he will understand where he was wrong, but I can't make him change his mind. I ran into my son's ex-girlfriend, Madison, in town. She spotted me at the local mall while I was with my friend. She called me out in front of a lot of people and started whistling, calling me a greedy miser. I didn't even have to answer her. My friend laughed and told her that she was a thief and a greedy person who just wanted my dead wife's ring because she couldn't buy such jewelry herself. Half the crowd immediately turned in her direction. Madison showed us the middle finger and, cursing at me, ran away, knocking down everything in her path. She even knocked down a small child who immediately began to cry. When Madison realized she had harmed the baby, she ran away even faster. My friend and I helped a pregnant mother calm her baby down, and luckily he was okay. Madison later showed up at my house and started screaming that it was my fault that her friends were now calling her a gold digger and were no longer talking to her. I replied that she really is a gold digger, judging by her behavior. She never had the right to my wife's ring, and she cried like a child for days about it. And then she left my son just because he couldn't buy her what she wanted. This is typical gold digger behavior. It's not my fault that she wanted my late wife's ring so badly, and I will do my best to make sure she never sees it again. Then Madison started yelling something inarticulately until she got to the car. I hoped it would end there, but she couldn't just leave us alone. To those who thought that the changes in Madison and Ryan's behavior were caused by substances, I don't know if this will upset you or not, but that's not the case. They did all this themselves, and in Ryan's case, it's even harder to accept because he has no excuse for this behavior. Last week, Madison was arrested for trying to break into my house. The cameras I installed recorded her entering my backyard and attempting to break down my back door with an axe. The alarm went off. Madison ran away, but the cameras in front of the house clearly recorded her face and the car in the driveway. She also left an axe with her fingerprints on the ground. When the police arrived, she was no longer there. But later she was found in her apartment. Initially, they wanted to arrest her only for breaking and entering someone else's territory, but she began to go on a rampage, so they had to throw her to the ground and take her out by force. She clearly has serious mental problems. A few days after Madison's arrest, I spoke with her parents again. They offered to pay for the broken door and gave me the details. It turned out that no prohibited substances were found in her body. She was checked by the police and the tests were clean. Since she didn't use, I guess Ryan didn't take anything either. But Madison was diagnosed with serious mental problems, so apparently it was her madness that turned out to be contagious. Her parents assured me that I wouldn't have to deal with her anymore. Once they settle all the legal issues, they plan to take her out of town. They haven't contacted me since then, but I don't think it's any of my business. Apparently, Madison needs serious treatment, and in some ways, I even feel a little sorry for her. I was sure Ryan knew what happened to Madison because literally everyone around him was talking about it, but he never got in touch, neither with friends nor with family. One of his colleagues finally contacted me and told me that Ryan was still very angry about the whole situation. He still believes that the ring would be a small price to pay for his happiness. But now that Madison has been taken away, Ryan has switched gears and started blaming her, calling her a crazy gold digger who ruined his life. He seems to only be able to blame others. Until he accepts responsibility for his own actions, I see no way to restore our relationship. He will not succeed in life if he does not learn to take responsibility for his actions. I hope that some time alone will help him calm down and understand exactly where he was wrong. Update 3. Most of the messages I have received on this site have been supportive, but there are rare individuals who write to me in private, calling me a bad father or a psychopath. These people clearly need to find a hobby. If their goal is to break me, then it doesn't work, although it is annoying. None of them offered any ideas on how I could handle the situation better. They just want to yell at me. One of them even lost his account, although not because of me, he just turned out to be a troll. Recently, someone else wrote from an account created just a day ago. Maybe this is actually the same person? Don't these people have better things to do than attack me for no reason? If you have a negative opinion of me, at least offer constructive ideas about how I could have done better and what to do next, instead of calling me a shitty dad, a monster, a psycho, or any of the other insults from your notebook of petty grievances. People who just want to fight and argue don't make the situation better. They do it for their own ego. And, they're out of their minds if their only entertainment is writing to a widower, trying to keep his family together. Very mature people. You can't say anything. If you trolls think I could have done things differently, let's remember. First, my son showed family jewelry to his gold digger without my consent. Second, I gave him a fair chance to ask his sister for a ring because he wanted to propose with it. She refused, and that should have been the end of it. Third, my son stole a ring and attacked his sister. Then less than an hour later, he put the ring on his girlfriend's finger. Fourth, they began to throw mud at me for forcing them to return a stolen ring that belonged to my deceased wife and was bequeathed to my daughter. Fifth, I tried to help them at least make a copy, but his gold digger threw a fit because she couldn't get the original, and my son couldn't afford an exact copy. Sixth, my son tried to break into my house, probably to steal something again after his girlfriend broke up with him. Seventh, my son's ex tried to publicly humiliate me and then knock the child down. Eighth, the same ex-girlfriend tried to break down my door with an axe and was arrested. Ninth, and finally, my son blames literally everyone but himself and receives no support from others except the trolls who write to me here. If after all this I am still being made out to be a villain, then those who write me such messages clearly need to have their heads examined. Yes, I changed the locks on the house. It's a natural reaction when someone breaks into your home and steals your things, even if that someone is your own son. No, I didn't try to make things worse. Ryan and Madison did. I wanted to discuss everything calmly, but they just started demanding their own, and I wasn't going to pay for a copy either. And guess what? When my wife died, my son received over $50,000 in his will and his mother's car. And my daughter received family jewelry. I think this is quite fair. My son invested all the money into a down payment on a good apartment. If anyone is interested, I also paid for my son's college education, and will pay the same amount for my daughter's education when the time comes. I don't have a favorite child, but sometimes people behave horribly, and there's not much you can do about it. Someone wrote to me that my son probably stubbornly decided to leave because his pride did not allow him to admit his guilt. He needs a new start where no one knows him. I can partly understand this, but it does not change the fact that he dug the hole he is now sitting in himself. Now I have a son who hates me because of the consequences of his own actions. Acquaintances and relatives regularly write to me about my son, although I did not ask anyone to do this, and my daughter is scared to death that her brother will come back and hurt her. I'm already working on getting her signed up for therapy as soon as possible. I now have a reliable security system in my house with cameras, and this already turned out to be the right decision when my son's ex-girlfriend tried to break down my back door. I wanted to talk. I wanted to help my son become a better person without feeding his bad behavior. But he refused and, figuratively speaking, pushed away my outstretched hand. So, trolls, answer my question. How does all this make me a monster? Final update. My son just left town. I hoped the drama would end there, but it didn't stop. Yes, Ryan sold his apartment. I don't know how much, but most likely I made a good profit. Last Saturday, he simply loaded the car with everything he could fit in and drove off. As far as I know, the last few weeks have been very stressful for him. The whole town knows what he did because the gossip hasn't stopped. One day, Ryan almost got into a fight in a bar with some guy who publicly told him everything to his face. I tried to take the initiative and visit him one last time. I was hoping we could talk and maybe make peace before he left. By that time, I'd already realized that moving was the best thing he could do for himself now. He's completely ruined his reputation in the city, and now he's better off starting over somewhere else. But when I came to him and knocked on the door, he refused to open. I tried to explain that I just wanted to talk, and he said through the door that we had nothing to talk about except that I ruined his life. Then he stopped talking for a while and suddenly started talking about the ring, that I should have just let Madison keep it or help pay for a copy. Then he added that it didn't matter anymore. Madison turned out to be crazy, and they broke up forever. And he no longer wants anything to do with me or his sister. This angered me, and I sharply replied that his action was completely unacceptable. He attacked his own sister while stealing a ring from my house. He's lucky I didn't call the police. Absolutely everyone who knew what he did was against him. This is such a massive red flag that the whole city understands that you are wrong. I told him to stop this show he was putting on because of his own pride. I added that I didn't know if he was in a hurry with Madison because he missed his mother, or because he was now the same age as I was when he was born, or for some other reason. But the fact remains that he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he simply did not want to admit it. And I'm tired of making excuses for him. I didn't tell anyone about the ring. He and Madison did. I'm tired of being blamed for his own mistakes. Only narcissists and cowards do this. His mother and I raised him better, and he understands perfectly well that his mother would never approve of his actions. But she is no longer around to tell him this. If you steal something that doesn't belong to you, you can't blame the owner for getting angry and doing everything he can to get it back. Ryan then went silent for a few seconds and then said, "Fuck you, Dad." After these words, I heard him start crying and destroying something inside the apartment. At that moment, I noticed that at the end of the hallway, Ryan's neighbor looked out of her door and then quickly hid back as soon as I looked at her. Well, this story will again go into the gossip cycle. Ryan refused to say anything else and I just walked away. But as I was leaving the building, a police car stopped right in front of the entrance. 2 officers came out and asked my name. When I identified myself, they said that one of the residents called them, saying that I allegedly tried to break into his apartment. I explained that I argued with my son through the door but never tried to force entry but only knocked. I told them the whole story, indicated which neighbors saw and heard us, and added that there were CCTV cameras in the building. One of the officers went up to talk to the neighbor and the second handcuffed me. He was very polite and explained that the handcuffs were just a precaution since they did not yet know who was telling the truth. I replied that I understood that he was just doing his job, and he allowed me to sit on a bench nearby. About 10 to 15 minutes later, I don't know exactly because I couldn't look at my watch, the officer who entered the building radioed that the neighbor's story generally coincided with mine. In addition, it turned out that her words were confirmed by other neighbors who heard our conversation. He then said that he would check the camera footage. It took even longer. I still couldn't look at my watch, so I just sat on the bench and waited. The kind officer turned on the radio on his phone so I could pass the time. Finally, the second officer contacted me again and told his partner to remove the handcuffs from me, since the cameras confirmed my words. He added that although the audio was not the best, the recordings were sufficient to see and hear that I was not trying to break into the apartment. After the handcuffs were removed, the two officers spoke briefly to each other and then asked if I was really the father whose son stole his dead mother's ring. I confirmed and asked how they knew. They replied that they had already heard this story through rumors, and now, having heard my version, they compared the facts. One of them was at the station the day Madison was arrested and said that she acted like a wild animal. She tried to bite the police and shouted threats like, "You know who my parents are, and I will castrate you." Although the word castrate is putting it mildly, I could only lower my eyes in shame. The police told me to just go home and advised me not to come here again. I nodded and left. As I was leaving, I noticed the police were returning to the building, probably to talk to Ryan. I'm sure he was the one who called the police because his neighbors later wrote to me on social media that the cops gave Ryan a serious scolding for making a false call, bringing him to tears. In addition, they reminded him about the story with the ring and said that his action was extremely low. I don't know how Ryan took it, but apparently when he called the police, he greatly embellished the situation. Judging by the time between my arrival and the arrival of the police, he called them almost as soon as we started talking through the door. He was incredibly lucky that he wasn't arrested for making a false call. When I returned home, I received support from my daughter Emily. She said that I did the best I could and that it wasn't my fault that Ryan became an asshole. But it still hurt. I may have lost my son forever. As a result, I took the day off, locked myself in my office, played Dragon Warrior on my NES emulator, and ate vanilla ice cream, trying to somehow relax. My son left town over the weekend. I may never see him again. But if I see him, I hope he will understand that I will always take care of him. Yes, he treated me badly, but I'm still his father. If he comes to my house tomorrow and wants to talk, I will open the door for him. I just hope that we don't have to wait 10 or 12 years for this day. Additional information. Some people wondered how small the town I live in was because rumors spread so quickly. In fact, the city is not that small, rather slightly below average size. But the reason rumors spread quickly was family. I myself grew up in a small family, but my wife's family was simply huge and very close-knit. When I say that her relatives are literally everywhere in this city, I am not exaggerating. I can meet one of them just walking down the street or going into a store. Many of them love to gossip. When my son started looking for support from relatives on the internet, that's when this gossip train started. First, the relatives told Ryan everything they thought about him, and then they began to tell everyone about what had happened. I didn't want it to get so big, but the situation got out of control on its own. For Ryan, this became those very 15 minutes of shame that should have ended quickly. But his ex-girlfriend Madison made it even worse, telling the story to everyone she met, trying to get support. This doubled the problem, and they both ended up losing all their friends. A huge number of complete strangers began to write to me, although I never gave my contact information to anyone. I still don't understand how they found me, but it doesn't matter now. Now that the son has left, the conversations gradually died down. In the first week or two, I was able to persuade most of my family to delete posts about Ryan on social media, but by then the damage had already been done. I sent out requests to remove any posts about this story and literally begged people to let it end. I didn't want attention. I just wanted everything to go back to normal. But everything Ryan and Madison did only made the situation worse. Some also asked about the guy who recognized Ryan in the bar and started a conflict with him. I heard it was the neighbor of one of Ryan's ex-friends, so it wouldn't be surprising that he knew what Ryan looked like if that's true. And yes, despite my age, I love old video games. For me, it's a good way to relax. My children were not interested in such games. My wife was not interested in them either, so in the family, this is my personal hobby. I don't play often. I pass Dragon Warrior at most once or twice a year, and usually quickly, using cheat codes because I'm not a very good player and never have been. Mini update, incredible theory. Mini update. My son also turned out to be a money hunter. Recently, someone messaged me on social media from an anonymous account, claiming to know additional details about Ryan and Madison. The man didn't say who he was, just that he was close to Madison. I was already hoping to put an end to the story, and then an anonymous source appeared. I can't confirm or deny this information, but from what I've been told, it turns out that Madison's parents are very rich. This person stated that my son Ryan continues his relationship with Madison, despite her crazy and aggressive behavior, only because her parents are wealthy people. It turns out that he also acted like a gold digger, and that's why he needed the ring to impress her. I'm not sure if I want to believe this, but there is some logic to it. If Ryan really wanted to get married for money, then a lot of his behavior lately makes sense. I can't say whether this is true or not, but if it's true, it means my son never loved Madison, and it was all just about the money. Hey, it doesn't seem to surprise anyone these days. However, I don't think Ryan would have ended up doing it the way he planned. The person who wrote to me said that Madison was the black sheep of his family, a spoiled girl with endless demands. That's why her parents sent her here so she could start working and experience real life. She was extremely angry with her parents because they stopped paying for all her whims. This person said Madison thought that if she got married, her parents would accept her again. But her demands on her partners were so high that no one could stand it for long. Ryan was just the latest in a list of several failed attempts. She only started dating Ryan because he had his own apartment. In the end, it was a two-way money hunting situation. Ryan wanted to enrich himself at the expense of her family, and she hoped to return to her parents' money by marrying Ryan. It's hard for me to realize this. This whole story casts doubt on Madison's parents, who claimed she was a good girl. Maybe there was one, and then I went crazy as a teenager. I don't know. Perhaps someone was just playing a prank on me for fun, or perhaps this was the real reason why my son was in such a hurry to marry Madison. In any case, now I have more questions about my son than before, but he is no longer around to answer them. I'm completely upset about this whole situation. My daughter Emily said she believed what I was told and believed that Ryan had always dreamed of becoming rich, ever since he received his inheritance from his mother. I guess I need another day of retro gaming on the computer and some ice cream. Emily said cherry would be better this time instead of vanilla. I don't know. This is again some kind of modern thing that I don't understand, but I really need a rest. I would like to go somewhere to the coast, but right now I don't have time. Maybe in the spring. And now I really hope that it will be the last. The most recent update. I just want to end this story. For the first time in over 20 years, I will spend Christmas without my son. It's even sadder that my wife is no more either. Now it's just me and my daughter, but fortunately my late wife's family is very supportive, and we will see them very soon before Christmas. Well, that's the end of the story. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about it. Do you think this explanation from an anonymous source is really logical, or is it all some kind of story? Simple, really. And did the author do the right thing? Personally, I think yes. He was absolutely correct. And if I were in his place, I would do exactly the same. Perhaps I wouldn't ask my sister for permission for this ring. But on the other hand, he acted wisely. And the fact that the son doesn't understand this is already, as it were, his problems. Well, thank you for watching the video to the end. Subscribe to the channel and watch our previous video, which you will see here. And good luck to you.